Hey, Charlotte County. This is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I'd like to thank you for all your years of support through the years. As a result, this channel has grown and allowed me an equity partnership in carmarshal.com. Please take the time to check them out. They help you buy and sell your next car, even have a negotiating tool to save you from the hassle of haggling with multiple dealers. The link is in the description below. Please click and help support and give if you can too through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks again.
Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to the Fourth Branch Show with your hosts Ted Visner and David Scheid.
American, that's what I am, that's what I say, and what I do.
Government is not the solution to our problem.
I am American, that's what I am, and I bleed red, white, and blue.
Government is the problem.
And I bleed red, white, and blue.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
What? I'm trying to get out of the call.
Hello, Ted. Ted, this is David. Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me? This is David too. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear David. That must be our guest for the evening here.
That's me.
David, that's David Frank. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, fabulous! It sounds like we've got a great connection. Ted, do you want to go ahead and give an introduction to Fourth Branch, or this is David Scheid? I can do the same. Ted Visner, are you on the line? Well, it doesn't look like it. Well, then I'll go ahead and start this call. Hopefully Ted will be back on. He's the one that has facilitated this call, and David Frank, I'll just make an introduction of myself to you. I did get to see a video that you had done with Gary Franchi. Watched that video and kind of got a little overview of what you are working on with regard to communications in all the states and using PBS broadcasting. And I just got off of another call, which happens to be actually with me. There is another call that I brought in with me from it stems from Oregon, and a talk show recorded call. And those people have been working in common law and wanting to set up something very similar to what I had heard you discuss with regard, or maybe I saw it in writing with regard to honeycombs and setting up the local governments. And Charles Stewart in Oregon, who should be on the line here. Charles, if you're on the line, you please speak up.
Hi, both Davids. Pleasure to see you both.
Thank you very much. So Charles has a group of people, and we do a 2-hour conference call prior to the Fourth Branch, and we discuss our ways of that we can be dealing with things at the local level. And so I thought that your concept of the honeycomb and how it focuses of government at the local level, of feedback at the local level, of communications with people at the local level, all of these things fits very well with Charles' concept of precincts at the local level, and so I know that very much that they're going to be interested in your topic tonight. And with that introduction, I'd like to let you take the floor and give us a good reason to listen to why you called tonight. Thank you.
You still there? Are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It sounds like
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we're all still on the line here, and I'm hoping that Ted will join us, because actually Ted's got control of the control board on incoming calls, and I'd like to ensure that other callers that come in will have open access to the line, because some people may be from this previous call that would like to speak, and we do want to give them the opportunity to ask questions. So thank you so much. David, please take the floor.
All right. Hey, thanks for allowing me to be on your program, and thanks for everything that you're doing, because, you're educating the people on what the heck is going on in this country. And, that's people in America needed to wake up a long time ago. I tried to wake them up 28 years ago when I did a radio program called Stand Up America, and I used to tell the people over the radio that, the politicians don't have the answers for you. You have the answers. And this is right when this technology was coming on, and at the same time, Ross Perot was on Larry King Live talking about a technological town hall meeting system, and America went crazy. But the problem with Ross Perot is he didn't know how to build it. He thought you build it from the top down, you build it community by community. And that's the blueprint that we're trying to get out. Sorry, my dog needs outside. Whenever I get on the phone, he does it.
That was one question that really popped out in my mind is your terminology of PBS. I just want to make sure that we are not talking about that we're talking about public broadcasting system as opposed to public access television.
Right. No, we're talking about public broadcasting. Everybody in America owns a TV station. That's what they don't realize, and that's what I'm trying to make them realize. We pay for every dime of of public broadcasting. We own it. It's not owned by Ted Turner or Murdoch or any of these people. It's literally owned by us. And what happened when it started, everybody was very excited, public broadcasting. It sounds like they're actually going to maybe broadcast the public. Well, what happened was back in 1969, when it started, the federal government realized that they did not want the public speaking out, and they started helping to fund public broadcasting. And by doing that, they were able to make sure that we, the people, didn't use it for what it needed to be used for, and that's to broadcast the people. And so that's why we're watching Antique Roadshow and cartoons and 60s music and silly stuff. But what we're doing is we're demanding in our community, and we're trying to get this blueprint out nationally, that we change the format of our local public broadcasting station to our local issues TV, radio, and internet channel. And we are going to use that to allow the people in our community to come up with ideas to make education better, environment, a better tax system, a better healthcare system, fixing the broken and corrupt judicial system, the broken and corrupt penal system. All these different issues, we the people are going to get busy rolling up our sleeves together, coming up with ideas to make our communities better. People need to be educated on these issues, so we're going to debate these ideas, videotape the debate, present that over PBS or our new local issues TV, radio, and internet channel for a period of, say, 10 days. Anybody that's interested in the issue will be able to pick up any touch-tone phone. You can use anybody's cell phone or whatever, and you'll call a local number, and it will go into a database. It will have your ID number and PIN number, and it'll ask you for that. It'll ask you what issue number you want to vote on. Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, count the vote, block you out from voting more than once. Every time this debate is replayed over a 10-day period, there'll be an updated tally of the yeses and the nos, And at the end of 10 days, not only will the people in your community understand this issue in its entirety, but the outcome will come from the people. We will give that to our representatives and tell them to make it a reality. And that's how we, start reinventing America. We stop waiting for people in Washington, D.C. to fix America. They aren't going to fix it. They don't care about it. They're there for the money. The people in state capitals the same way. And the 9 goofballs on your city council and the mayor, whatever tax money you have there, all they're doing is laundering it to their friends, and their friends are laughing all the way to the bank while your community basically crumbles. And that's why, the roads are bad and the schools are bad and then the water is bad and the police department's out of control, and just nothing works because over the years, all they've done is built a system with people that are there because of who they know as opposed to what they know. So nothing works. They're all there for the money. And what we're going to do is demand that we give everybody in our community a real and equal voice. Everybody wants equality in America. The only way we'll ever have equality is when everybody has an equal voice. That's what this communication technology will do. It'll interconnect all of the brain cells in your community, and you'll get busy fixing your community. And when you find things that work, you'll share it with other communities, and when they find things that work, they'll share it with you. And that's basically it.
And it sounds wonderful, and I want to get into the meat and potatoes of it. And in doing so, I wanted to also mention that I'm hoping that we have Mike on the line here from Unified Counties of America, because it was Mike that brought my attention. I think it was Mike that brought you to the show, actually, and
right.
And he's got United Counties of America, and the whole premise there is unity. For unity's sake, and everything that you're talking about is bringing the counties together, bringing the states together, bringing the local communities together, and those people in those local communities through communications and the communication system. And PBS is a national system that's been set up. It does allow people to. My experience with PBS, we do have a very good PBS studio, right here in my own hometown of Novi, Michigan. That's got an elaborate, studio set up and everything. But my experience has been little in knowing what it takes to develop. It's my understanding that you have to have your own production set up. You basically have to finance your own production in order to get it onto PBS television, and that's as a program. But you're talking about setting up a channel all by itself and having this channel linked from community to community, from state to state, and all across the nation. And I invite Mike. Mike, are you on the line by any chance? I hope. Give him an opportunity to.
Hello, David.
Well,
David,
yeah,
this is Ted Bisner here.
Hey, bud.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry about that. Hi, David.
Hey, Mike.
And hi, Ted. Good to hear you guys.
Hi, Mike. Hi, David.
Hi,
David.
Well, I wanted to invite Mike to elaborate on a little bit on how he sees this unity, that how communications can help unify all the different things that we need to have come together. I know that David Frank his focus is on getting the people's thoughts and their passions about their community across to their representatives. Those representatives have to know what the thoughts and feelings are of the people, politically, about what's going on in their community and how things can get resolved. And this communications, this PBS, this network set up with a channel is one way of doing that. How do you see? I certainly see a boatload of there's the channel available to the community that people know is specifically for them in the community like this. I can see a lot of things happening. I'd like for Mike to open up the floor here with his thoughts on how these things can come together.
Well, absolutely, David. Anytime in battle or in a war, the first thing governments do is attack their opponent's communications network. So obviously, that's a very valuable asset to any civil government society. So keeping that in mind, we want to do that for our benefit. We want to build our own communications network. We're paying for it with our taxes, but over the years, like David had mentioned, it was captured by the establishment and by the big corporations, and what we want to do is take it back. And it would be a very, very powerful tool to have public broadcast television, under our control, under the people's control. And, this would facilitate our networking capabilities enormously. And that's just one aspect of it. Then you also have public broadcast radio, which, is another whole arena of communications that we can recapture. So it's all about, making our voice heard and being as loud as we possibly can with that voice. And what David is doing is just one example in the big picture, but his effort has huge potential. And that's what makes it so very important that we understand that everything is centered around communications. And once we can achieve, a national communications network governed and controlled by we the people, then, we really stand a chance at reversing this tyranny that has overtaken our country. And I just see it as a very, very important step in the right direction. And it's just like if you think back when the country was being founded, the first thing the founders did was they set up committees of correspondence and committees of safety. And these committees were designed, Paul Revere was a member of the Committee of Correspondence, to communicate the message, urgent messages throughout the colonies and the counties. And
he was an electrical impulse that carried the message, and that's what they were back then. Very good, Mike. I'm just really enjoying what you're saying. I just needed to throw that in there. And just let me say this, back when this whole system started, they didn't even know the word electrical impulse. They didn't know what that was. But Paul Revere was one. And the politicians were supposed to be electrical impulses that took our voices to Washington or state capitals or downtown. But I'm 69 years old. I've never been asked my opinion. I have no voice. I have no representation. Now it's time to represent myself. So I'm sorry, Mike. I just need to say that.
Oh, that was very well said. Thank you, David. That's awesome. Very well said. Words spoken in season. We just must be encouraged by this great upheaval of populist activity among the people, and we can't let these divisions among, the left and the right discourage us. I think it's going to have an opposite effect. I think it's going to backlash on them, and I think people are going to see all this false flag counterfeit activity for what it is. And it's going to cause people to wake up, I think, because if you notice this past week after the Charlottesville incident, YouTube is full of people analyzing the event, and the public source intelligence of our communities on YouTube are finding out that many of these people, many of these faces that were seen on video and in photographs are actually operatives of the deep state and the DNC. So these things are getting uncovered due to communications networks. And putting together this... Yeah, go ahead. I yield.
Well, I was just going to say...
I wanted to... Go ahead.
Please,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to say that their goal is to create chaos. That's their goal. And like Mike was saying earlier, if you want to destroy your enemy, what you do is you knock out their ability to communicate, because once you do that, then you have chaos, and that's what you want during war. You want chaos so you can, pick off your enemy. Well, that's what they want in our communities too. They want chaos. That's why they're fighting so hard against what I've been pushing, this ability to communicate as a community, to put the unity back in community. They hate that idea, but they all run on this thing called transparency and accountability. Those are the buzzwords today. And do they really want it? No, they don't want it, because like in our community, for example, we have a $900 million tax revenue budget. $900 million that's being spent by 30 politicians, 9 people on a city council, 9 people on a county council, 3 commissioners, a mayor, 7 people on a school board. $900 million being spent by 30 very below average people, because once they get elected, then they turn into zombies. Everybody knows that. That's why we're on this call, right? Our lives are being controlled by people that, are being paid off to make horrible decisions for us. And now all of a sudden the shit's hitting the fan, and we have chaos across the country because nothing works. Nothing works. And we want something better for future generations. And thank God that we have the communication technology that we have, where we can talk like we're talking, and that we can actually do something about it. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that the goal is, as we all know, is chaos, especially as they're sending all these military vehicles to communities around the country, because they know that when they pull the rug out from under the economy and your credit card and your debit card doesn't work, guess what people start doing? And who's going to save us? The military. And who controls the military? The bankers. Sorry. Got
Did
on a
somebody
rant.
try to get in there just a moment ago?
What's that?
I thought somebody tried to say something just a moment ago. Ted, are you on the line? Did you want to say anything?
I'm on the line. I'm listening intently. It's great to hear you guys talking about this, and it's also great to meet you, David. Another voice. That's great. I'm kind of under the weather tonight, and I'm just kind of playing it low key, if that's all right, guys. If you need me, just holler. I'll be right here. In the interim, you guys are doing great, and keep it up.
Well, and along these lines, I want to get into the nuts and bolts of the PBS. And how, David, if you could give us some insight as to how you propose to bring this to the local community in all the counties. I would imagine that we're looking at the county level. And if there's 5,000-something counties in the United States, what's the plan? How are you going to head this along so that we can all participate and support you and be part of it?
Well, this is what we're doing. Let me give you a little background of what I've been doing. What I did was I contacted the general manager of our local public broadcasting station. And I explained to him, I sort of, you guys are ahead of your time, really. You understand what's going on. And I've been studying the system for a long time, and I understand it too. But I sat down with him for a couple hours, and I explained to him the seriousness of where we are as a country. And I explained to him that one of two things is going to change in America. America is either going to change through violence or it's going to change through communication. And I said, my suggestion is communication. And I said, it just so happens that you have the communication tool that we need in our community so that people that have issues that are frustrated, you know, like the guy that got in the car in Virginia and drove into those people, you know, sooner or later we as a society have to ask ourselves, why was that guy so mad? What's really on his mind? What's causing society to be so pissed off? And everybody has an issue. Everybody has an issue, but the problem is they don't know what to do with it. And that's why I explained to him that we need our local public broadcasting station so that we can present our issues directly to the community, we can come up with solutions, and we can vote on them. And he got on board. And it costs a little over $3 million a year to run public broadcasting. So what we're doing is we're telling our city council, who has $900 million a year of our money, and they're spending it without asking us, we now want $3 million, and that money will go directly to public broadcasting. And when that happens, we basically control public broadcasting. We're financing it, and we want local issues. And so that's what we're doing now. We're building a coalition in our community. We're having our second meeting this coming Tuesday. Then we're going to have a rally out in front of our local public broadcasting station so that when the media comes, and remember, the media is really not our friend because all of the campaign finance money that's collected by the politicians ends up with the media. So the media never really wants to bite the hand that feeds them, so that, you know, locally your media probably is not covering what's really going on with the political machine. But with that said, what we're going to do is call a press conference. We'll be in front of public broadcasting. We're going to make it very clear that as a community we demand that we change the format of our local public broadcasting station to our local issues TV, radio, and internet channel. And we're going to build a database, and we want $3 million to fund it. And that's what we're going to, that's our next step. And then we're going to the city council, and we're demanding $3 million for the station. And that's basically it. We are going to, make enough noise where the people in our community, I met with a lady last night. She heads a group called Mamas Against Violence. Her son was killed for no reason, and kids are being killed around our area like crazy for no reason. It's just terrible. But anyway, we explained the plan to her. She gets it. She knows that the violence is nothing but a symptom of a dysfunctional system, causing dysfunctional leadership, causing a dysfunctional society. And she understands what we're promoting, and she's going to join us in our rally. And we're reaching out to all these different groups and telling them that we want them to help us build this tool so that they can get their issues resolved by presenting it directly to the community. Because remember, federal, state, and local government is where great ideas go to die. What we need is great ideas in your community to go to thrive, and that's what this will do. This is the communication tool to interconnect all of the brain cells in your community. And instead of 7 idiots on the school board who are taking their marching orders from the federal and state government, not from the people, we might have 10,000 people in our community raising, debating, and voting on educational system issues. We might have 10,000 people raising and debating and voting on environmental issues or tax issues. I personally believe, I've studied healthcare for 40 years. I believe that the answer is community healthcare, not national, not insurance companies that are just totally corrupt today, but community healthcare, where your healthcare dollars go directly to your community hospital. They handle all the doctors that are now on salary as opposed to commission, like used car salesmen. They handle the nurses, they handle the surgeries, and they handle the pharmaceuticals, all under the same roof. And all of our community financing our community hospital, and everybody's covered. These are the kinds of things that we can do. once we have a voice. We can get rid of property taxes that are totally unconstitutional. If you read the original Constitution, the only people that were supposed to have a voice were property owners. Nobody owns property anymore. We lease our property from the state. And all of a sudden, that $150 you were paying for property taxes is back in your pocket. And all of a sudden, things in your community can start to work. Things like that.
If you please, I would like to ask, okay, if you've got a $3 million budget to work with and to justify, I'd like to know. I'm looking at my community, and I probably need to ask what state or what area you're from. Where are you operating from?
I'm in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay, South Bend, Indiana. Okay,
right.
So you're real close to Gary Franchi.
Yeah.
So I like Gary, and please tell him hello if you talk to him. He should know me. I know, like I said before, we have a public access building, not public access. We have a public broadcasting system, PBS station, here in Novi, where I live. However, if I look at the surrounding cities, I don't see that there. So I would like to know.
Let me jump in here. All those surrounding cities, they probably get your public broadcasting station, so they'll be
Correct.
able to use this as their tool. You're not only helping your community, you're helping everybody in that circumference of public broadcasting. Benton Harbor, Michigan. I'm in South Bend, Indiana. Benton Harbor, Michigan receives our public broadcasting airwaves. They'll be able to use this.
Okay, so each one of these communities should have, could maybe have, if they ask for it, a $3 million budget to be working with to create their own channel on that public broadcasting system. Would that make multiple channels on a single broadcasting system? Or please give me the outline of what this is going to look like. I want to know what the schematic is. Let's just take your North Bend, your community,
right.
and
right.
Benton Harbor and all the places that are getting it. You're going to your community with a $3 million budget. Suppose somebody from Benton Harbor is going to do the same. Let's tell me the schematic.
Benton Harbor will basically get it for free. We're just going to our city council. This is it's only a 1-year deal, and I'll tell you why. We now have the technology next year to set it up where you can charge 50 cents or whatever it is a vote, and you'll have more money than you know what to do with. And that'll go to fund your broadcasting station next year. But all we need is $3 million. That's it. And all of these surrounding communities will be able to use this tool so that people in their communities, if they want to raise issues in their communities, will be able to use this. And but you're going to find, this is what you're going to find. You're going to find that almost all of the communities will have the same issues, because what you're going to be doing, these are basically the issues: education, environment, taxation, health care, fixing your judicial system, fixing your penal system, your infrastructure. They're all basically the same. Those are the things that make us a sort of a civilized, community. All you need is one tool to send it out, and then you can also get by with one database per viewing area, and each area will have its own prefix. So when you vote, the computer will know exactly what area is being voted on. Does that make, like you have an area code now, or a zip code? Well, for voting, each area will have its own, so that you'll know that the people that are voting are from that particular area, and that's how you'll be able to keep track of the votes. Does that make sense?
It certainly does, and I in either your video interview with Gary Franchi or maybe in the email that I got from Mike, it made it clear that there's the zip code was set up in the same way to get order and structure to the national system of mailings, and the phone lines were done the same way with the area codes, and so you're stating the same thing with regard to the communication systems that are being set up, that they have their own structural system numerically that will identify what community they're coming from, if that community is part of the so-called PBS system that is being set up, correct?
Exactly. And ultimately what we are going to do is we're going to remap America. We have to. That's the only way that 320 million people can get organized. We're organisms, but we got to get organized. And we're going to remap it just like the phone system remapped it with the area codes, and the postal service remapped with zip codes, and all the communication systems have remapped America. That's how they're able to function. And we've got to remap America. And what I'm basically envisioning is 1,000 hexagons across America. And the nucleus is the public broadcasting station to send it out, and the database to receive the votes or the calls or the votes. And then I'm just thinking probably the way it will work out is each broadcasting station, and there's about 160 of them across America, will be encompassing about 6 hexagons.
Well, may I offer you something that I would like for you to consider? And it's the reason why I asked Charles Stewart et al. To be on the line tonight, because I thought hex 6, okay, hexagon.
Right.
Right. Let us consider a decagon 10, and let us consider how Charles Stewart, going back into the history of common law, is advocating for a precinct system that, tell me if I'm wrong, Charles, because I know your line's open here, that the precinct system is based upon a 10 household number, and that 100 household is called a 100 court, and in fact, a 100 court precinct system is alive and well in Delaware or Connecticut or someplace like that today, and that this is a viable system to argue about. And if you don't mind, David, I would like to just give Charles a couple of minutes to expound upon that, and then I would like to go back to Mike, because Mike was the one that brought all of us together, and I'm sure he's got some thoughts about this matter as well. So, David, if you don't mind, I'd like to open the floor to Charles for just a moment to expound upon the precinct system and using the terminology of a decagon with regard to setting up communities. Charles, are you there?
I'm here, David. I thought the other David might agree to my taking a few moments here, and I thank you for the. Oh, okay, and I want to thank the first David for the graceful segue. And we do have about 15 people calling in that are behind me here with the conference that I'm hosting that are listening also, in addition to however many might be with the Fourth Branch group that are listening. But to get to the points on the precincts and the townships, our American common law, as referred to in the Seventh Amendment, is actually based on more ancient Bible law, reaching back to Exodus 18. therein Moses and Jethro were talking, and Jethro told Moses that he can't be judging all the cases of judicial conflict in all the nation of Israel. And he needed to appoint captains over tens, and captains over 50s, and captains over hundreds, and captains over thousands, and they would decide all of the small cases, and the cases that are really complex and desire greater levels of wisdom in order to be resolved. Those could be passed on up the hierarchy in the graduated hierarchical scheme until, if they're really, really complex cases, they'd go to Moses himself. And that tradition was brought into the laws of England somehow through history that went through the Dark Ages, and we don't really know all the history of how it was brought in, but it's clear. Blackstone himself declared that that Exodus 18 Bible structure in particular and general biblical law is the basis of the laws of England, which is just another term for common law. And built thereon, America derived our common law principles as referenced in the Seventh Amendment and Fifth Amendment due process and rights to trial by jury and all that. All of that is part of our organic American constitutional system of government, and particularly local counties and precincts and townships. If we do the history, it's fairly easy to prove that a modern common law constitutional precinct is supposed to be what's called, David referred to as a 100 court. And that's a community of 100 households, each headed by a qualified elector that is building consensus from the grassroots bottom up. Consensus it is in our modern collective consciousness. Building consensus is rarely ever talked about. It's all majority rule, and there's pendulum swinging back and forth between the Democratic and Republican Party, and therein you can see the hand of the dark forces that are coming in from Roman civil municipal law, the laws of the empire, which are opposed to our Anglo-American common law tradition. At the precinct level, the Democratic and Republican Party are registering what they call precinct committee persons. Okay, they're either precinct committee persons for the Democratic Party or they're precinct committee persons for the Republican Party, and therein they divide and conquer the precinct level of community with different factions of their Roman civil municipal law. But the true common law precinct essence that's organic is built upon consensus, because the precinct level 100 court would be composed by a board of directors, which is the elected 10 town constables. You see, each township of 10 households elects their own town constable from amongst their own members, and that's based on consensus. It's not based on majority rule. And then the 10 town constables get together to form the leadership of the precinct court. And again, the justice of the peace, who has the super powerful judicial power that cures economic problems and everything, that justice of the peace, the 10 town constables from the 10 townships build a consensus around who among them is the most talented to be the chief judicial officer of their precinct level 100 court and the justice of the peace judicial district. And I'll quote here, but go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, and I think that you've done a good job there of outlining at least where I want to go with this here. Now, two things are coming here right now at this point in time. One is that I just wanted to make my point that the decagon, being the 10, and this is based in common law, and it's only for your consideration, David. is because I want to. You're talking about setting up a new form, a more local form of effective government by the people, for the people, and of the people. And this is based in common law. Factually, it's biblical in its proportion and stuff like that. Second thing I wanted to point out was that Mike Anthony of the United Coalition of America is going to have to leave the call at 10 o'clock in another 15 minutes, and I did want to give him more time on the floor so we can come back to this idea. But I wanted to just make sure that David knew why I'm trying to bring this together, because I wanted to give him some ideas. I love the idea of the hexagon, the honeycomb concept, that the effectiveness of a beehive is the honeycomb, that each bee stores the labors of its works, the fruits of its work inside the honeycomb, that the jewels of this country lie at the local level, at the very fruits of one's own labor, and that we all should have a voice in what it is that we have for a government, and that is not being carried out today. And we need a whole new paradigm of change in America. And what Charles Stewart is proposing, and what you, Dave, are proposing as well. I call you Dave because people call me Dave, and I've got David, So I just want to bring this together and provide food for thought. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Anthony for some of his thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Can I say something here real quick, please?
Please do.
Excuse me, Mike, just 1 second. I just wanted to address this idea of 10. And I think what we're proposing really goes sort of hand in glove with what you're trying to do. 10 is my favorite number because my date of birth is 101048. And in this plan, and it's on the blueprint that's on our website, One Voice Now, it's on the problem and solution page. And let me very simply explain how an issue will go through your community, because people in your community don't want to watch silly issues. They need a filtering system, and I think this is sort of hand in glove with what you guys are doing. Once we have the local public broadcasting station, TV, radio, and internet set up, and people get registered in the database, what we want the database to do is pick 10 people at random every week, and the computer will do that. And these 10 people will only be there for 1 week, the same reason a judicial system gets rid of a jury, so the money and the corruption doesn't get to them. They rotate. You get new people every time. So every week we're going to have 10 people that have never had an opportunity before to be sort of like the representatives in the community, sort of a grand jury, if you will. And now we have 10 people, and Dave Frank has an idea that he thinks can make the community better. He thinks we ought to have a law that says no driving and drinking, period, like they have in Sweden. You can drink, just don't drive and kill people when you do, or yourself. So he presents his idea to these 10 people. And if the majority of these 10 people think that this is an idea that should be considered by the community, Dave goes to the next step. The next step is videotaping Dave and his issue and presenting it over the local Issues TV, radio, and internet channel for a period of 10 days. There will be 2 phone numbers that will be given. One number people can call and be part of a lobbying group for the issue. One number they can call and be part of a lobbying group against the issue. When they call either one of these numbers, information will be given to them as to where and when these 2 lobbying groups are going to come together and prepare. 30 days later, we're going to have a debate by these two lobbying groups, and we're going to videotape the debate and assign an issue number to it. It will be replayed again over our local Issues TV, radio, and internet channel for a period of 10 more days. And anybody that's interested in this issue will be able to call a local number, go into the database, and vote. And they'll be blocked out if they try and vote again. And every time the videotape is replayed, there'll be the updated tally of the yeses and the nos over a 10-day period. So we're using the 10. It's sort of coincidental that you guys are pushing it too. But I just wanted to say this so that you understand that, for whatever reason, we're sort of talking about the same thing. One person presenting it to 10, but instead of presenting it to 100, you're presenting it to 100,000 in your community. And that
awesome.
way I think we're using more brain cells that way too.
And I can also see that you're using up the $3 million. That justifies the $3 million. I can see that in an infrastructure. Thank you so much for explaining that, and we will expound upon that momentarily. I did want to give Mike Anthony a chance to have the floor before he had to leave the line at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, Mike? This is Mike. Yeah, thank you, David. And David Frank, that was a marvelous illustration of direct democracy, and this is what technology is affording us to accomplish. I believe there will be a day not so far away that representatives and senators will no longer be needed. We will be able to determine by consensus, electronic consensus of we the people, what we want and what we don't want. And doing this through an electronic selection process will eventually eliminate the need for these Congress critters that waste our money and create tyranny. And I just want to applaud David's efforts. And we like to refer to this as county stewardship. We are stewards of the county. And bringing this concept back out of the Bible, trusteeships were a concept that were brought from the Bible. When the original townships came here, it was all about managing and being a good steward of the land that you dwelt on. And this is the concept that we need to return to, and localism is the way we can do it. And with technology today, this is going to really facilitate this effort in the greatest way. And it's just really exciting to see all this coming together. And the United Counties of America is simply a structure, a platform to put all these tools and these weapons that we have, technology. And I just am really encouraged by what I'm hearing. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to run here shortly, but you guys are doing a great job. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. I yield.
Well, I do have one, and that is at your comment that we may not need our legislators anymore. I would like to propose that we go ahead and release this audio and let them all have heart attacks.
Well, when you mention trustees, what we've been doing is trusting the wrong people. We've been trusting people that are misrepresentatives. And what we've got to do is we have to evolve as a humanity, and we have to start trusting ourselves and start acting like adults. And just like Mike says, we have to be the stewards of this great planet that God has given us. And Jesus said, there will be a day where the last will be first and the first will be last. And that's exactly what this new technology that's been dropped into our laps miraculously allows to happen. But we have to demand it. The politicians are not going to do this for us. They hate this. They are stricken with all of the deadly sins, every one of them. And they do not know the truth, and they are not capable of knowing the truth. And that's why we have to take it back. And that's what we're going to do. But we need a plan, and I really appreciate you guys letting me share this plan with you and your listeners, because all we're trying to do is get people to realize, hey, the answer isn't in Washington, and it's not with 150 people in state capitals that don't care about our community because they don't live in our community, and it has to be we the people. That's what our founders tried to tell us. And now with this technology, hey, he said the truth will make us free. The truth is, why should 9 people on a city council have a voice and 90,000 people shouldn't?
Well, now, if you don't mind my interjecting here, I'd like to see if maybe you can elaborate on the any business plan or anything like that this is something. Let me go back to the proverbial. Is this a top-down situation where you're going to kind of head the whole thing from the PBS all across the nation, or is there a business plan? I'm playing the devil's advocate here. Is there a business plan that you got that's kind of open source, so to speak, that you are going to be sharing with everybody so that they can go to their own community and kind of do it at the grassroots the same way you are? Please elaborate.
Yeah, well, it's on our webpage or website. It's www.onevoicenow.org. There's a problem and solution page, and that's the blueprint. Before you can build anything, you need a blueprint. And that's what's on that page. It's the blueprint where people in their own communities, they don't need me. They can do this. It's all right. There's a lot of creative people in every community, and when they find better ways to do it, they'll share it with all the other communities. And it's all ground up. It's all from the bottom up. I try and convince people this isn't about Dave Frank. Dave Frank does not have the answers to making our world a better place. God has already given us the answers. The problem is back in 1960, 9 geniuses on the Supreme Court, 9 lawyers, threw the answers out. They were all in the 10 Commandments. Those are where the morals are. You don't lie to people. You don't lie about people. You don't disrespect parents. You don't work 7 days a week. You don't kill, you don't steal, you quit believing that Barack Obama or Donald Trump is God, and those are the morals. You don't sleep with your neighbor's wife. These are the morals. They're right there, but the reason we've become an immoral country is because 9 lawyers threw God's words out. And we as a country, as a humanity, sat back and allowed it to happen. But with this technology, once the people in our communities have a voice, we can do what Jesus said he came to do. He said, I didn't come to change the laws. I came to fulfill the laws. And all we've got to do is bring them back and have a conversation in our communities that all of these things are wrong. Don't do these to other people if you don't want them to do them to you. And it's really that simple.
And with that, I might
if I may, David, if I may,
I do want to open up the floor. Charles, is that on your end or is that on our end, Ted? If I may.
It's Mike, David. I was trying to add something here.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in conclusion here, what this technology is facilitating is the gleaning process of public intelligence. We have thousands upon thousands of citizens out here that are extremely knowledgeable, have various interests and special projects that they have spent, much of their life pursuing and being interested in. And with this whole technological process of, using the internet, using the public radio and TV systems, we will eventually and finally be able to glean all this magnificent knowledge and public open source intelligence. We will be able to, sift out through the citizenry this fantastic amount of knowledge to provide decision support, in government. And that's what it's all about. And these government critters in Congress, they have basically, monopolized the process of decision support to pad their own pockets and their buddies' pockets. So now, finally, once we get the system in place of public open source intelligence, we will be able to, manage it in a very powerful way due to the technology. That's all I have to say, and it's been a great show tonight, and I yield, and we'll be listening. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Well,
good to talk with you.
Hallelujah, and I'm sure that David would be in touch with Mike at a later time here. And Mike, I do want to thank you very much for bringing Dave onto the line here. We value very much what he's doing. I might just add that the lawyers are the gatekeepers, and I can bet that this city commission or the city city council that you are going to take this $3 million proposal to has at least one lawyer on the board, and that is going to be a standard everywhere we go. And indeed, they do have a monopoly. I am alleging that myself. I know Ted Visner agrees with me that the bar acts as the gatekeepers. And a lot of the people that are members of these boards are yes men and women that follow whatever the lawyers tell them is the legal options that they need to take. And so with that, I'd like for David to expound a little upon what kind of arguments he intends to bring against these so-called gatekeepers, these lawyers that are going to be basically rubber stamping a big NO on any request for $3 million that's going into the public's hands so that we can have the power of our government back.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely of the lawyers, by the lawyers, and for the lawyers. And it was the lawyers that have created this mess that we have in America. And, it's all imploding. I mean, that's the good news. I mean, if that can be good news, that's good news. I mean, we're 20, they have created $20 trillion of debt, which is 20 million. And we're done. We're bank. We just haven't filed bankruptcy yet. It's all going to cave in any week now. I think everybody knows that. That's why they're moving this military equipment to communities around the country. They're getting ready for the chaos because when the debit cards and the credit cards stop working. We talked about this earlier. But remember, lawyers go to law school to learn how to take whatever side of an issue they're paid to take. And these people are making the laws, and all of the laws are to benefit them. As society falls apart because of the horrible decisions that they've made, guess who you need? When you go through a divorce, you need a lawyer. When you're being thrown in jail for, stealing a loaf of bread because you're starving, you need a lawyer. When you're caught smoking a joint, that whoever decided that was, illegal, you need a lawyer. It's just everything that you do in life is now about needing lawyers. And lawyers are liars. That's what they are. That's what they started out to be. They were paid liars. That's why they went from the name lawyer to attorney, so that it doesn't sound like what they really are. And even the Bible talks about not using lawyers to settle your differences. And people have to remember that, that judge up there is just a lawyer disguised as a judge. So the whole judicial system is now imploding, and it's being exposed. And so the timing for all of this is right, but the question that needs to be asked to these 9 people that are the gatekeepers, if you will, of our money is, why? Tell me why we shouldn't do this. Tell me why we shouldn't have a voice. You explain why you should, and why we shouldn't, because you were out here with us, and apparently when you were out here with us, your voice wasn't good enough, and that's why you ran for office. So you needed more of a voice, and when you ran for a voice, or when you ran for office, you said that you were going to listen to us, and the Constitution calls you a representative. You aren't a leader. You are a representative, and it's impossible to represent anybody without communication. So if you don't like this plan to hear my voice, give us a better plan. Tell us why we shouldn't use this. The TV, the radio, and the internet together so that everybody is included. Or why should we stay with the present system where when we go down every 730 days and we march into this primitive voting booth to vote for somebody that we know is not going to represent us? Why should we keep doing that as opposed to bringing our Constitution into the 21st century like the Declaration of Independence told us to do when it said that it's not only our right but our duty to change the system when it gets this bad? I'd say World War III is bad enough, wouldn't you guys?
I certainly would. That's an awesome statement that I think that any one of us can pick up on and to deliver to any person of so-called authority in our community. And I think it's a good way of turning it back on them and having them answer the question of why not. Charles Stewart, well, first of all, I noticed that we have gone past the halfway mark of the 2-hour program, and so I asked Ted and Charles, these are the people that have the keys, so to speak, to the phone lines, and I would like to open up the phone lines to the public, all of our listeners here. If we can keep ourselves under control, the protocol is to say, if I may, to speak, use the word point of interest if there's any reason to interrupt, or a point of fact, or something like that. And when you're finished, to say, I yield. Those are just simple protocols for mixed conversation here. So I'd like to open up the phone lines for questions. I'm sure a lot of other people have questions. I do want to give Charles Stewart the opportunity to speak a little bit more and to reflect upon how he sees this communication fitting in with the precinct system. And with that, I will yield and give the floor to Ted Visner, my partner on the 4th branch. Welcome to the 4th branch.
Thank you, David. I've kind of held my tongue here, even though it's been really difficult. Who is this guy, David? David. What I'm thinking, David Scheid, is that you and I need to make a trip down and see David. I'm sitting here with goosebumps. This is really amazing. This is one of the first things that I've heard since we started working on the plan to build unity that totally makes sense to me. And I need to know more. And you talked earlier, David Scheid, about putting together or seeing the blueprint for what David Frank's talking about. And I think that I could certainly be part of the creation of that if it's not already, completely solidified. Even if it is, I'm sure maybe we could do some tweaking to it. But after listening to David Frank here, I'm thoroughly convinced that, this is not something they're working to copyright for their own little collective here, but something that is going to be used on a national level by as many people as we can get involved. And wow, it even has a built-in feature to help finance the entire thing with the 50 cent per vote thing, and that's really exciting. David, I'm so glad you're on the show tonight. Wow, what a breath of fresh air, and we seem to think a lot alike, and very prima facie, bold, in your face, detail, and I love it. I love it. And with that, I'm going to yield. At the same time, let David know. I want David Frank to know that I'd like to start communicating on a regular basis, and hopefully you're willing to do that. And
absolutely. Look, we're all in this for the same reason. Look, we care about this country. We care about the people. That's why we're doing this. I could if somebody laid $1 million on me today, I could care less. Although I'm broker than broke. This is about leaving this world in better shape for future generations. This is about God's children. And when you're good to God's children, when you care about God's children, you're doing the work. And I commend you guys. You guys have been doing this. This is terrific. Think of all the people you've educated over the years and woken up to the scam that's being perpetrated on the American people and the people around the world. And you've done the work. And I mean, I'm thrilled to be on your program, and I would love to work with you, and we can do this. I mean, when I started this back in 1989, I saw what could happen very quickly when Ross Perot was on Larry King Live, and all the guy said, because there was a percentage of people, not like today, but back then there was a percentage of people that really wanted to see some change happen to America. And when that guy, hey, if I was, he said, you know how Ross Perot talked, hey, if I ran the country, I'd build a technological town hall meeting system, and I'm doing this local radio program called Stand Up America, and all the local politicians hate me. And here's Ross Perot on national TV saying what I was saying, but I really believed that he knew how to do it, but he didn't. He didn't tell people that you don't build it from the top down. You build it from the ground up. That's how you have a solid foundation in our country. And people moved. I mean, people, they were so excited. I've just never had the opportunity to sit on a national program and say, hey, this is the way you do it. Everybody get busy. Don't worry about what's going on in Washington, and don't worry about what's going on in your state capital. Get busy right in your own community. Build a coalition. Very simply, number one, demand to change the format of public broadcasting, your local public broadcasting station. Build a database in your community. And number three, fix your community. That's simple. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, but we've got to sit here and we got to listen to these Democrats tell us how the Republicans are rotten, and the Republicans tell us how the Democrats are rotten, and they're both telling the truth. They're both telling the truth, but the reality is we don't need those two organized crime syndicates handling our $4 trillion anymore.
Thank you for calling them an organized crime syndicate, because that's exactly what they are. They are domestic terrorists operating as a fictional corporate government, and we're all starting to understand that they are a corporation, but what we still cannot, most of us, accept yet, and we need to, and that is that this is organized crime, that the mafia, that they sent their children to college to become lawyers, that the real criminals and the real mafia right now are the bar members, which include the judges that have taken over 1/3 of our really all 3/3, because bar members are in every branch of every government that we have at the state level and the federal level, and they're in every commission, in every school board, in every city council that we can imagine. They are there, and they are giving their advice, and everybody kowtowing to what is legally advisable. And that includes all the corporations, and our government is a corporation, and they operate as domestic terrorists against we the people, and I'm fed up with it. I yield.
And just think about this for a second. The abbreviation for corporations is CORPS. The only thing that's missing is the silent E, and a corpse is death, and that is who is now running America and our lives. And that's why God has given us this technology. He's dropped it into our hands just like he dropped that piece of wood into Moses' hand. And all of a sudden, we the people can start to interconnect with one another like Mike was talking and bring that collective consciousness together. You know, when you think about your brain, there are clumps of brain cells that do different things. You know, these brain cells allow you to smell things. These brain cells allow you to see things. These brain cells allow you to taste things. Well, in your community, you're going to have a clump of brain cells that are coming together because of this tool, this communication tool. Then you're going to make your education system better than ever before. You're going to clean up your environment. Donald Trump's not going to clean up your water and air. That's up to you. That's up to you as a community. If everybody cleans up their water and air, guess what? America's clean. And the health care and all of these things. And so simply, we can have a very simple tax system because everybody does need to contribute to, you know, making your community better, but you keep your money right in your community and you let the people decide where they want that money to go and where they want it to not go. And all of a sudden things start working. You know, but as long as you allow 9 people on a city council and a mayor to do the thinking for 90,000 people, you have a brain dead system. And as long as you allow 150 people at the state capitol to think for 6 million people, it's a brain dead system. And 545 people thinking for 320 million, it's brain dead. The goal is to use as many brain cells as possible, and that's what this technology will do. And people are ready. People are ready. And when I say this isn't about me, it's not. It's about everybody. Print is there. I mean, I hope your listeners will go to www.onevoicenow.org, look at the video, look at the problem and solution page, take that information, give it to other people in your community that you know care about your community. Build a coalition of people that want one thing. They want a voice. And take that to your city council, take that to your public broadcasting station, and demand that things change nonviolently in your community. And if we all do that, all of a sudden, man, just like Mike was talking, some of the most brilliant people in the world are right in your own community, and you aren't tapping into them. That's what this will do.
David, please give us that website one more time so we can all focus on it.
Yeah, it's www.onevoicenow, O-N-E, voicenow.org /video. That'll take you right to the video. And then check out the problem and solution page also. That's what you need in your community, because the question will be, well, you know, everybody can't talk at the same time and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? They can. Thousands of people can. If the question that you're giving the community is yes or no, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people can vote at the same, have their voices heard at the same time by pushing a button.
Well, and you got this word absolute that can go in front of each of those words, yes and no, and it's the gray area in between that the lawyers like to focus on, the controversy.
Yeah.
And Ted, I don't have it here in front of me, but I wish that you would provide the website for Mike Anthony. The United Counties of America. I'm not sure what that website is. Could you give that citation here?
You just said it, David. It's UnitedCountiesOfAmerica.com. And once again, David Frank's website is onevoicenow.org.
Right.
Okay, and at this point, again, I would like to, I don't want to play partial to just us. I want other people to be able to ask their questions. I would like to start with Charles. Charles, do you have questions or do you have comments that you'd like to share? And then I'd like for you to open up your board with the 15 or so people that you have on there. And if you can control the dialogue, I'd like to turn the floor over to Charles Stewart, please. Thank you. Charles, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had my mute button on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes. We've got about 4 other people on the phone line and about 10 in the chat window that are listening. But their lines are mostly open, and I would like to put some grounding into the general discussion that has gone on. I salute the brilliant efforts of all of the previous speakers. They're all moving in the right direction, but the rubber meets the road in terms of organic constitutional law. The rubber meets the road out there at our smallest communities, in our township levels and our precinct levels. The executive power is in the really, really small communities of 10 households at the township level. This is our peace officers. The leader of the elected leader, based on consensus of the 10 qualified electors at the township level, he's an executive officer, and he's got the right to make arrests. And we're desperate for enforcement, because if we get enforcement is even a bigger deal than the judicial power. And once we have the enforcement and we have the judicial power, we have all elements of sovereignty. There's no legislative concern to micromanage it. But at that, and the certification of the qualified electors purges out the people that are like on the left wing, the Hillary Clinton Democrats that are just out there purposefully subverting the left wing, talking a real pretty talk. But if any of the lefties do any of their homework, they quickly get smart enough to know that Hillary Clinton is a subversive Judas goat, and she does not deserve any credibility. She's not a qualified elector. On the other side, people like Dick Cheney is probably the best example, who was involved in the 9/11 attacks and murdered lots of people there. Dick Cheney, in his own local community, I don't think he could get 10 other qualified electors to agree that he's a qualified elector. So he would never graduate on up the hierarchy to a position of power. Neither would Hillary Clinton, because they're purged at the local level, where status of being a qualified elector is certified. Please note that qualified elector status is in the common law jurisdiction, which is the organic constitutional jurisdiction, whereas what we've got now all across the board is, quote, registered voters, unquote. Those are franchisees of the civil municipal top-down authoritarian model of government, of empire, of slave traders. The common law model is grassroots bottom-up, based on consensus. The Roman municipal model is based upon top-down authoritarianism, coercion, and deception, and divide-and-conquer strategy. And I've outlined a lot there. I'd like to yield, and I definitely welcome comments. I think I made some good points. I'd like to hear some feedback. Go ahead.
I know that there is interest here in Michigan because we have had some discussions here recently regarding the Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 13, which expressly states that we, the people, have the right individually to prosecute our own cases. It says in our pro per person or through an attorney of our choice or a lawyer of our choice. Now, it does not say whether it's civil or criminal. We here in Michigan have, myself included, have lots of evidence to show that we are being precluded from being able to prosecute. I've had rulings at the state level and at the federal level which tell me and everybody else, because this sets precedents, that we have no right to even an interest in the prosecution or non-prosecution of another person. We have no right to access a grand jury or to demand a grand jury hearing, especially when we're alleging crimes by so-called government officials. And so I take great interest in your statement that the 10, if you can outline a little further, because I hear that you saying that 10 households can elect a constable. I'd like to know the definition of household, especially when we have online communities and we have people from separate counties that are coming together, how we can elect a constable while we actively use our state constitution to privately prosecute these criminals that will not prosecute themselves because they like to call themselves government, or we look at them as domestic terrorists. I open the floor to Charles once again.
Thank you, David. The enforcement power is right out there. I like to think of an eggshell. All the thinking and the judicial powers go on further closer in towards the center as you progress on up the hierarchy. But in at least a circle or in 3 dimensions, an eggshell, the outlawry, the purging of the criminal elements from the community is done through the certification of qualified electors process, because people that want to get in that are just blowhards that don't know what they're talking about or that are actually subversive, they won't be able to get the necessary people to be qualified electors. But you segue, David, if I might move on a little bit. You referenced the problem of building a 10-household community when maybe people in smaller counties can't find the number of people to participate. And there's sections in state constitutions that say, especially governing the legislative department, particular sections there, it says the legislative assembly shall not make special or local laws. In Oregon's provision there, Oregon's constitution is very advanced, more so than I believe any other state in the union, at least regarding this particular verse, because in Oregon's founders, they went on to list what special or local laws are. And those are laws regulating courts of justice and the jurisdiction of justices of the peace and of constables. Those words are directly used in Oregon's Constitution, and the Legislative Assembly, which is allegedly the lawmaking body of the Roman civil government of the state, they are thereby prohibited from making any law regulating the jurisdiction of justices of the peace and of constables and of courts of justice, which are our precinct level 100 courts. So this means that the sovereignty is with us in those local jurisdictions. And to get more to your point, that prohibition against the legislature for legislating in special or local communities, that word special. Local is obvious, that was the problem that you were addressing, but special is that brings in the ideological and religious and fraternal type of jurisdictions that are all considered under, quote, private law, unquote. These are private jurisdictions that have authority to form their own communities and to responsibly self-govern under the rules of the common law. And when they do that, when they issue judgments, like the judgment that we're working on, Sam Gilrod's case, and in the Keith Livingway case, and all kinds of other cases that definitely needed to be addressed, these when we adjudicate this from our own ideologically based jurisdiction of patriots that are up to speed on common law due process, then that judgment is under that special exemption from the state civil government's statutory regulatory authority, and thereunder we have the sovereignty to exercise the judicial power by rendering these verdicts that deserve, quote, full faith and credit, and unquote, and, quote, comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y, to accommodate these judicial opinions, because Oregon statute recognizes that a judicial officer has power to control the acts of every person associated with any kind of a case that is legitimately presented before that judicial officer. Okay, so when that judicial officer has the right to command the obedience of every person related to a case that is a proper judicial controversy with a sworn criminal complaint before him, then that judicial officer has elements of state sovereignty, and we've got the authority to do that from our own special or private jurisdictions that are ideologically based upon truth and justice here. And I believe that answers your question rather long-windedly, if it might have been.
And I would like to just point out to Ted Visner that we'll listen to that again, because this is recorded at least on TalkShoe, and I believe also on Blog Talk Radio. That is something that Ted and I will pay particular attention to, the difference between the local jurisdiction and the special jurisdiction, and the special jurisdiction being private. Now, that's also going to be of concern and should be addressed by David Frank as well, if he has not considered that already, that we have, especially when we're asking $3 million from our local government, that the local government's going to say, well, okay, where are you spending it? All right, then you're going to have to prove that you're spending it at your local, for the local community. Well, within that local community, there is special, we won't say special interest, that's tied too much to the lobbying groups, but there is the special jurisdiction. There's the private concerns and the private fraternities, as you mentioned, or however you want to describe it, that these people acting in the private capacity, they need to be addressed somehow. I'm not sure at this point how that can be addressed, and I would like to open the floor to anybody who would like to comment about how that can be addressed, because when we're talking about dollars and cents, they do need to be accounted for. And when we've got people within the local community that have these, that are considered themselves as private, now we're talking about the difference. And I don't know where to go from here. Anybody have any ideas?
I have ideas.
Hello,
okay, Charles.
Hello.
Go ahead, Charles. Charles.
I have ideas,
yes,
but I think there was a third voice coming in there, David.
No, that was Ted. I think he was just mocking the fact that nobody had a voice in that right there. I think that it does create a quandary, and I'd like for let's go ahead and see if we can attack it real quick.
Well, sure,
if I may.
And we've got somebody else. Yes.
If I may, this is Ted Bisner. I'd like to say something about the $3 million because for the purposes that we're looking for this kind of money to initiate or expound upon public broadcasting for the purposes that we have, it's going to be the door's going to be shut in our face. But one of the things that David Frank said earlier that's really impressed me is I think that this has the ability to create its own buzz, its own lift, so to speak, and take off on its own with the mechanism that David Frank has already mentioned, which would completely circumvent the need for approaching the criminals, asking for money, asking them for money to shut them down. It should be common sense by now. Everybody that's worked long enough in the face of this corruption to know already that the answer is going to be no. And I'm very excited about what David Frank said about using this voting process. I think that this can be started. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't approach the entities for funds to get this going, but what I'm thinking is that we should also multi-tier this and also work to create an approach where the project and the process will fund itself by charging 50 cents a vote. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I really do, and I think it will generate the interest on its own. I think it will generate the revenue that we're looking for just using that simple mechanism. And I'll yield now to David Frank if he's got any more comments on that. I think he's probably already preemptively thinking that the door is going to be slammed in our face because we're asking the criminals to provide us the mechanism to shut them down. And I'm David, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we've been trying to get these guys to do the right thing. There's, you're just talking about nine people on a city council. Once again, they're holding us hostage. But over the years, before the timing was as good as it is now, it was basically me and a couple other people, demanding that they fund this, and they played the numbers game to stop it. But what we're doing now is we're building a coalition of people. And it's not just going to be 5 people or 10 or 20. It's going to be a lot of people that stand up once they understand what we're saying. And they're going to demand it too, because like I was saying earlier, everybody has an issue. They're the education issues, all these people are fighting, trying to make their community better. And once they hear the plan, I think they'll join us. So it's almost, they talk about democracy being mob rule. Maybe what we need is mob rule to build democracy in the first place. And that's where we're at. I understand what you're saying. You're right. They don't want to give it up because when they give that up, they're giving up $900 million that they've been laundering to their friends. And it's even worse on a state basis. And, going back to the feds, you're talking $4 trillion every 12 months. But they've been doing it for so long that they really have finally destroyed the economy. And when this has happened in countries around the world or, in history, it's always the same thing. It's that Tower of Babel that eventually falls over because the people at the bottom become hungry and frustrated and revolted, and then they have a thing called a revolution. And that's what's happening in America now. We started with a violent revolution, and now we've done one complete turn. That's what a revolution is. It's one complete turn. You're right back where you started, and that's where we're at now in America. You know, you have these so-called representatives in Washington, each making decisions for 700,000 people. That's not representation in the age of communication. We have real representation in the age of communication, and it's called self-representation. But we're going to get this money one way or another, but if we can get this thing out nationally, that would really help put pressure on these 9 idiots on the council and the mayor to do the right thing. It's sort of like, you know, when Martin Luther King started off, you know, it was a small group of people. But as he marched and as more people understood what he was saying, it just grew and grew, and Congress had no choice but to, you know, bring about change. Unfortunately, it was stupid change, you know, things like busing and all this other stupid stuff. But you know, they tried to put a Band-Aid on the problem to stop it, but they didn't stop it. It's worse today than ever, actually. But today it's a different deal than it was back in the 60s. Today, I mean, we have this amazing technology that's being used on us, and what we're going to do is demand that we use it for us. And the question has to be given to them, tell us why we shouldn't use our $3 million to give us a voice. Tell us why. Give us a reason. Do you think we're stupid? Do you think that $900 million belongs to you, or does it belong to us? Answer the question. And that's what we have to do. We have to treat them exactly like what they are. They are our employees who are all doing a horrible job. And it's up for us, the employers, to basically tell our employees the way things are going to be. And the good thing about it is it's not one guy saying it. Hopefully it's going to be a whole community and a whole country and a whole world doing this, because the exciting thing about what we're doing in our community, not only can it grow to the country, but they can use this in Israel to start resolving their issues through communication as opposed to violence, and giving everybody an equal voice. And they can do it in Russia, and they can do it in Africa, and they can do it in Syria. I mean, can you imagine the people in North Korea, how pissed off they must be knowing that this dysfunctional little prick is ready to annihilate the whole human race because of his insanity? But if all of a sudden people in North Korea had a blueprint where they could go, hey, look at what they're doing in America. They're remapping America. The nucleus is a broadcasting station, radio and internet to send the information out, a simple database. We don't need this guy anymore. And all of a sudden, from the ground up, things start to change. And we can do this, and we can get this out. I've been using social media. I'm fortunate tonight to be on this fine radio program. And hopefully a lot of people are hearing this thing. And so they can go to the website, and they can read it for a few minutes or watch the video, and they can take that information and share it with their friends. And before we know it, you know, unfortunately, like I said, I don't get to sit on Larry King Live like Ross Perot did because I'm not a billionaire. But I do have a good idea. And once again, the idea is not about Dave Frank. It's about everybody. And, you know, one of the most intelligent people I've ever known in my life, he was a mentor of mine. He taught me about government and religion and Jesus. I really knew very little about Jesus. And he educated me on that. And he called me to his bedside as he was dying, and he said, Davy boy, he said, you got to promise me you'll never stop doing what you're doing. He said, you know you're absolutely right. And he said, always remember, Davy boy, vox populi vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. That's my religion.
And who was that mentor?
His name was Andy Collier. He was an elderly Greek gentleman who had a photographic memory. And it's sort of an interesting story. I met him in 1980 1984 when I started my restaurant right near the University of Notre Dame, and a year before I met him, he died. I know that sounds funny, but it's the truth. He was pumping gas about a block from where my restaurant ended up being, and he had died. He died. They walked away from him. He was gone, and that was it. And he said he remembers while he was gone, he saw his mother and his aunt, and he said it was beautiful, and he said he wanted to go with them. And they said, "Go back. We aren't ready for you yet." And the doctors said they had never, ever seen anything like this. They gave up on this guy. The next thing they knew, he was back. And a year later, he and I met, and he became my mentor. And when I had this vision, I was paralyzed for a week. That's how this information was given to me. And I used him as a sounding board to see if it made sense to him. And he was there for me to educate me on government and politics and religion and just all kinds of things. It's so anyway.
Well, I wanted to give him some recognition because even as we reach our old age ourselves, I think it's important for the younger generation to know that there's people that have influenced every one of us in our lives, whether they are grandparents or the key people in our lives. At some point, they mean something to us, and they aren't forgotten.
Absolutely.
I did want to get back. This is David again. I wanted to get back to the structuring, and we only have about 15 minutes left in this show. Real briefly, now, like we mentioned before, the PBS stations are only in certain communities, and then they're surrounded by other communities that those stations serve. And it's the city councils, am I right, that the city councils of those communities that have the PBS stations, they're the ones that are funding the PBS stations, or do groups of communities do that, or does it depend on the station itself, and whatnot? And the second part of that question is that if those communities are being funded entirely by if those PBS stations are being funded entirely by the community itself, which I don't think that they are, because I think that there's some kind of federal funding that goes into all that, jumbo. But is it really the bottom line for the outlying communities to be forming assemblies, be forming those committees that you were talking about, so that they can put pressure on? Where does the pressure go? If you can kind of, outline that. I like to see it. What's it look like?
Yeah, it's really more of just a coalition that is all thinking the same thing at the same time. And they're the ones pushing the blueprint. They're the ones pushing the plan. I've got a nucleus of people, a core group of people, and we're all reaching out to more and more people, and we're explaining the plan. They're coming to the meeting next Tuesday, and we're growing very fast. But the timing is absolutely perfect right now, because everybody's really scared, and if you aren't, you're just stupid. And people are very receptive to this. People are very receptive. And you can be doing the same thing in your community. Because you can't do this by yourself. You're not a threat to those 9 idiots on the city council by yourself. But you're a threat when all of a sudden you've got 100 people or 1,000 people. And that's what's going to happen. Because people can't put up with this guy.
I'm sorry to break in, but the media itself is a threat. You are dealing with a topic that is the threat, because now we're talking about the free press, the First Amendment, and we're bringing fire and breath to the First Amendment now, because it's been taken away from us and undermined by the mainstream media.
Absolutely. And that's why our founders made freedom of speech or voice our first freedom as opposed to, guns, because, the guns have already been pulled out, unfortunately. But it's okay because people are awake now. But now they need an alternate plan than to, we're going to get guns and we're going to go to Washington and we're going to take this thing back. And then what are you going to do? Then you're going to put in 545 new idiots because you're using the same top-down system that they use in the 1700s. You can't solve 21st century issues with the 1700s system. It can't work. It will not work. Our founders never knew. Our founders never knew the term TV, radio, computer, paperclip, rubber band. They didn't. They lived in the 1700s, but they did a heck of a job building an electronic or a human computer system where politicians were supposed to be electrical impulses that rode back and forth to Washington state capitals and downtown after talking to us and supposedly taking our voices with them. That's why they were representatives. Well, we all know what happened. They ain't coming down. They've been shorted out by greed from lobbyists representing special interests, and we pay them a ridiculous amount of money to do what they do, and they don't even live in the same world that we live in. So we can't rely on them. We just can't. You just can't rely on them. We have to come up with our own plan, just like our founders did, and that's what we're doing. And I can guarantee. I've read about our founders, and I can tell you that if they lived in the 21st century, and they were inventors, a lot of them were inventors, they would say, you guys are still using the same system from the 1700s, and you have all this amazing communication technology? What is wrong with you?
I believe that somebody's trying to break in. Go ahead.
Charles Stewart here from Oregon.
Go ahead, Charles.
Well, excellent words, but we don't have to invent something new. The technology that is being discussed here, it's a wonderful blessing, and we can capitalize on it, no doubt. But we don't need to reinvent. To reinvent. We've got a model from traditional common law that is amazingly empowering to our smaller local communities without creating anarchy and chaos at the upper levels of the hierarchy.
Well, I agree with that, and that's why I'm trying to bring this together, is that the traditional model that you're proposing, Charles, fits, as David Frank had stated, like a hand in a glove, and this fits with we're talking in both cases about the power at the local level, the voice at the local level, the communication from the local level going outward and upward, and that being the power base. Thank you. Is there anything more that you had to add on that, Charles?
Well, just briefly, that not only the outer and the top, the grassroots bottom-up polarity in the small communities, but the building of the consensus in the individual small communities. See, you can always tell a problematic person that's seeking qualified elector status to go find a different township. You're not fitting in around here, and he could move around and bounce around until he finally finds a township of other people that have that particular unique ideological perspective that he does. And then he can build his own community with other like-minded people, left or right wing or whatever. But they can, all honest, righteous people that have any kind of a connection with the God source can find communities that are similarly like-minded. And thereunder, they can develop their consensus. And then those smaller communities can elect one spokesperson that is the representative to the next higher level jurisdiction, where, again, a consensus is built around the more well-refined and well-developed thoughts and arguments. At that point, you're purging out the people that don't know how to communicate well, or that are too emotional, that are distracting from the essence of the legitimate point that is trying to be made. But at the higher levels, where there's more, there's people with greater levels of community confidence elected to be the representatives at in the higher level hierarchy, grassroots community for more solemn deliberation. At that point, these tougher issues can again, a consensus can be built. Honorable men, honorable people that are sincere and humble, allowing others to speak and working with God heartfelt devotion towards building the consensus on all reasonable propositions. At that point, you're building the grassroots bottom up. You're capitalizing on all good energies that are possible within your local or special private fraternal community. And they're coming together, but they're building consensus in each of their own separate communities, that those separate ideological communities then come together at the hierarchical level to hammer out a consensus between the different ideological private communities to firmly establish a solid base in public law instead of the public law that we're now under, statutory Roman civil codes, that's polarized by the Democratic and Republican Party and pendulum swinging back and forth between chaos tyranny on one side or chaos tyranny with a smiley Democrat face on the other side.
Okay, and thank you, Charles. And I'm looking at the clock here. We have 5 minutes left. I believe that that this could be a topic for another show here, Ted. I believe that we could discuss what Charles had just had spoken about, dealing with consensus. I picked up on that word consensus. And in one sense, and Charles is a good friend of mine here, and I know exactly where he's coming from, but this is where rule of law comes in versus consensus, because around the time of the Civil War, the consensus was in the South, and believe me, I'm totally against what happened in the Reconstruction Acts, but the consensus was in the South that a judge could put together a jury of Klansmen and basically have a consensus of guilt on somebody who was not guilty, or not guilty on somebody who just killed a person of color. And if you didn't like the weather, you could move. And if you didn't like the way things were down there, then you could just go somewhere else. And that was the mentality of things, and in some areas still remains. And when I moved to Michigan and I started experiencing this corruption as a newcomer to Michigan, it was very clear to me that if I didn't like the weather here and I didn't like the corruption here, I could just go somewhere else. But I decided I was going to stay and stand on the rule of law, only to find out that it is completely arbitrary and capricious here in Michigan. And so this topic of consensus versus the rule of law needs to be discussed further. And certainly we have no time here. And what I would like to do at this point, first of all, is to thank David Frank very much. We hope to get you back, Dave, because this topic is a hot one. I think that even though Ted Visner had said at the beginning of this program that he wasn't feeling so well, I definitely picked up on his voice and his enthusiasm that he's feeling much better. Thanks to your topic and your discussion here. And because of that, I want to, me, David Scheid, I want to turn this over to my partner, Ted Visner, to finish out this show, to close everything out, and to thank you. I yield.
Thank you for that, David Scheid. Thank you, David Frank, from the bottom of my heart for being on tonight. Wow, what a breath of fresh air. And Charles, thanks for bringing your group with you tonight. And yes, this is going to be continued next week. And I appreciate all the input and all the awesome conversations tonight. We're going to create a YouTube video out of tonight's show, and I think it's certainly worthy. And we're going to blast it out. We've got some friends now working in social media that know how to really pump these things out. So that's what we're going to do with the show from tonight. And hopefully next week's show will be filled with this much enthusiasm and goosebump-raising topics. And again, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being here. And you're all invited back next Friday. And until then, that's going to close out our show tonight on the Fourth Branch. And God bless. Everybody have a good night.
You too. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, John Boy.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I found that I had to make a change this ending on my videos, letting you know about the channel and fair use laws, you know, how we can report on other people's reporting and how it's good, how it's bad, etc. But you guys can look it up yourself. It is legal. It's in there. But like I've told you before, that I've been cut off from making money on YouTube for 4 years. It's really weird, bizarre, but they cut the money off, but they said you can keep the channel, and now YouTube makes all the money. And if you get bored, plug it into Social Blade website, and you'll see that they are making a huge amount off the site. Right now it's at 63 million views, 53,000 subscribers, almost 3 million views a month. You know, trying to wake people up, and I make nothing. In fact, I got a customer that's ex-congressman. He said if I could ever find a lawyer, sue YouTube on it. But because this is nuts, 4 hours a day, and to save America. You know, but at the same time, it's worth it. Look at what our founding fathers did. They died for this country. So. But getting back to the money part, this is why I'm redoing the video. Is my dream of everyone giving $1, and it's going to be $53,000 a year, or if they did Patreon, which you know, can be monthly. That is not working. That'd be great if it did. Nothing is perfect. And I appreciate the people that do donate, you know, what they can on PayPal. And there again, I'm letting you guys know that is not much. It is, you know, monthly is, oh my god. So anyways, yes, you cannot live on it. It's very, very, very low amount. But the dollar things, I do appreciate that. But when I first said everybody give $1, that's not working. I'm just letting you guys know it's, yeah, that's that dream. Everybody gives $1. 53,000 subscribers, it's not working. So yes, if you can give more than that, you know, I appreciate it. Like I said, you know, I'm in a unique situation where, you know, we're already debt free, and I'm not rich, but with the little business that we have, I am able to do what I am able to do 45 hours a day, you know, letting you guys know what's going on. In 4 years, I've did the whole thing myself. 12,000 videos on there. I literally get emails where people are like, holy crap, I never knew it was this bad. And it is this bad, and it's getting worse every day because we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have cameras everywhere now, and it's just disgusting what's going on. And then, as you guys know, too, we got Trump, we got Jeff Sessions doing a war on drugs, and now he wants to go after the forfeiture laws again. It's just unfreaking real. So, if you can give more than that dream of everybody giving $1, that old video, that's not working. They're not. They're just not. So, anyways, if you can give more than that dream is not working. Hardly anybody is giving. There you go. So that's why I'm remaking the video. If you can give more than that would be great. And there again, like I said, the Patreon's there. There is some people on there that are starting to give, but there again, it's very, very low. And like I said, I don't want to get rich off of that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because, you know, it's still so stinking corrupt. It's not even funny. My court case that I'm going to be paying out of my pocket myself with Charlotte County's coming up. They illegally looked me up and then posted all my information on LEOAFFAIRS website. They basically doxed me, however you want to say that. I forget what the word is, and they outed me, man. And that information on that site went out to 500 sheriffs, deputies, people that work at the jail, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, it is very, very scary, but we're going to do a federal case, 1983 case, violating freedom of speech. We have 17 cameras in the house now. We got 2 cameras in the car. I always carry a camera plus a cell phone. A lot of people are highly recommending I get a vest now. If I could, if the wife would let me, I would run for sheriff. We are trying to push the thing nationwide right now. Where just to mix it up and to get the topics out there is register to run for sheriff, NPA, no party affiliation, as a write-in, and that is completely free, and you can participate in the elections. And there's a lot of stuff. We got a guy, James McLinnis in Pinellas County, Tampa, who almost won. He experienced the corruption himself. The story is unbelievable. Look him up. It's mind-blowing what they did. It pissed him off. He is very, very smart. He has way more money than I did. He ran for sheriff at the last 3 months last year in 2016 and almost won. He got all of the black vote. And the reason why he did that is because he ran in, I will not bust, we're in Florida, I will not bust anybody for weed anymore unless it's an ungodly huge amount, like pounds. And then he also ran in no more victimless crimes, no more of this freaking road pirate bull crap. And then he was going to cut the budget by 30%. And when you think about that, you can. If you stop the road pirates, you can get rid of a bunch of people. Gone. So, the wife has been saying, yes, I can, yes, I can't. So I don't know. We're trying to find somebody that can do it because I am busy doing this anyways. But, so I'm making a video, like I said, that $1 a month from everybody, you know, for 53,000 subscribers, that is not working. I'm just letting you guys know. Absolutely give way more than $1 a month. If you can, I appreciate anything. By the way, remember, too, when you give that, PayPal takes like freaking 15 to 20%, so it's even worse than that. But, and there again, like I'm letting you guys know, it's way, what I get is very, very low. Appreciate it. But it is very, very low. Can't live on it. I'm just, you know, I'm working, and that's what I'm working on. And that court case is going to cost a buttload of money. That's federal court. Just the filing fees and the depositions that we're going to be doing with this corrupt cop. So there's another reason to give. We are going to be doing a deposition with this very corrupt. He was in a drug squad. He is a bad guy. He's on steroids. We heard steroids are rampant here. That's why their attitude is so bad. And we are going to get him on video, and it will be on YouTube. So that case alone is $5,000 just to bring it to court, and that's my money out of my pocket. So there's another reason to give, and give way more than $1 if you can. So keep that in mind. This is the new video, and I see, God, I talk a lot. It's already 7 minutes, but had to make it just to let you know that $1 a month from everybody is not working. They're not doing it. So if you can give more than that, please. So thanks. Keep it up. Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends, send me your videos on corruption, and I'll post it.